Dolly Parton built one of the most successful careers in music history, but the higher she climbed, the more dangerous the business around her became. Behind the awards, the hit songs, and the smiling public image were moments that broke partnerships, ended friendships, and turned some of the biggest names in the industry against her. There were lawsuits, power struggles, and deals she refused to sign even when the pressure came from legends. And some of those decisions created enemies she never truly trusted again. The rise from songwriter to mogul. Long before she became a superstar, Dolly Parton made her name as a songwriter. After moving to Nashville in 1964, she signed with Combine Publishing and quickly started writing songs for other artists. Within a short time, her work was already climbing the charts. She wrote several singles that became hits for other performers, including 2 top 10 songs recorded by Bill Phillips. At that point, she was not famous yet, but people inside the industry already knew she had something special. Writing came first for her, and it stayed that way even after she became a performer. Over the course of her life, she has written thousands of songs, building one of the largest catalogs in country music history. That catalog became the foundation of everything she would later own. When her own recording career took off, the success did not slow down. Dolly Parton went on to have 26 songs reach #1 on the Billboard country charts, a record for a female artist. She also built a level of longevity that very few performers ever reach. Over more than 50 years, she placed more than 100 singles on the charts and released dozens of albums that reached the top 10. By the time the Recording Industry Association of America recognized her for selling more than 100 million records worldwide, she was no longer just a country star. She had become one of the best-selling music artists of all time. The awards followed the success. Dolly Parton has won 11 Grammy Awards from dozens of nominations, along with a Lifetime Achievement Award honoring her entire career. She was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 1999, a moment that confirmed her place in the history of the genre. Years later, she was also inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, proving that her influence went far beyond country music. She received the Kennedy Center Honors, the National Medal of Arts, and recognition from nearly every major institution in entertainment. Very few performers have come close to collecting that many honors, and even fewer have done it while still working at the same pace she kept. But music was only part of what she built. In 1986, she opened Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, turning her childhood home in the Smoky Mountains into the center of a growing business empire. What started as a theme park became an entire company that included water parks, dinner theaters, and entertainment productions. Through Dolly Parton Enterprises, she kept control of her music, her publishing, and her brand. Owning her songs meant owning her future, and that gave her a level of power that many artists never get. By the time her business interests expanded beyond music and movies, she was no longer just performing for audiences. She was running a company worth millions. Even with all that success, she never lost the part of her life that mattered most to her. Through the Imagination Library, she has donated hundreds of millions of books to children around the world, turning her fortune into something that reached far beyond the stage. But the truth is, not everyone in the music business was happy to see her gain that much control over her career. Because early in her career, one of the very people who helped her get started would become the first to take her to court. And the fight that followed nearly cost her everything. The mentor who sued for millions. Long before Dolly Parton became one of the most powerful women in music, there was one man who helped open the door for her when nobody else believed she could make it. His name was Porter Wagner, and at the beginning of her career, she trusted him more than anyone in the industry. He gave her opportunities, put her on television, and helped her get a recording contract when other people were ready to pass on her completely. That is why what happened between them later hurt more than any business fight she would ever face. In the late 1960s, Dolly was still trying to prove herself in Nashville. She had talent. She could write songs faster than most people in town, and she already had a few small successes. But the record labels were not convinced she could become a star. When the chance came for her to sign with RCA, the deal almost fell apart before it even started. Chet Atkins, one of the most powerful producers in country music at the time, was not sure she could sell records. He reportedly said he did not think she would make it, and the label hesitated to take the risk. Porter Wagner stepped in at that moment. He had already made a name for himself on television, and his show had a strong audience. He believed in Dolly when others did not, and he was willing to put his own reputation on the line for her. To get her signed, he agreed to a deal that most artists would never accept. If Dolly's records lost money, RCA could take the loss out of his own royalty. He personally guaranteed the contract, which meant her failure would cost him directly. It was a huge risk, and he did it anyway. The gamble paid off. Dolly's first single for RCA, "Just Because I'm a Woman," reached the charts, and she quickly became part of Porter Wagner's television show. Week after week, she appeared beside him in front of a national audience, and the exposure helped build her name. For the next several years, the two of them recorded duets, toured together, and became one of the most recognizable partnerships in country music. From the outside, it looked like the perfect arrangement. He had helped create a star, and she seemed loyal to the man who gave her the chance. But behind the scenes, things were not as simple as they looked. As Dolly's confidence grew, she began wanting more control over her music. She had strong ideas about the songs she wanted to record and the direction she wanted her career to go. The problem was that Porter was still in charge. He produced the records, he ran the show, and he decided how things were done. People who worked around them later said that Dolly often felt trapped. She respected him, but she also felt like she was stuck in a role that no longer fit who she was becoming. Her guitarist at the time later admitted that she was unhappy during those years, even though the public saw success. She wanted to experiment with different sounds and different songs, but Porter preferred to keep things the way they had always been. Arguments became more frequent, and because he held the power, he usually won them. Dolly kept smiling on stage, but privately she knew she could not stay in the same situation forever. By the early 1970s, she realized she had to leave if she wanted to grow. The problem was that leaving Porter Wagner was not just a business decision, it was personal. He had taken a chance on her when nobody else would, and she knew walking away would feel like betrayal. For a long time, she did not know how to tell him. The pressure built until she finally did the only thing she knew how to do. She wrote a song. That song became "I Will Always Love You." It was not written as a hit record at first, but as a goodbye. When she played it for Porter, the moment was emotional for both of them. He understood what the song meant, and for a while, it looked like the two of them might part ways peacefully. They agreed that she could go solo, but he would still have some involvement in her work. It was not a perfect solution, but it allowed her to move forward without completely breaking the relationship. For a few years, things stayed calm. Dolly's solo career started to grow, and she became more successful than anyone had expected. The bigger she got, the more valuable her work became, and that's when the situation changed. By the end of the decade, the business side of their partnership came back to the surface. Contracts, royalties, and old agreements that had once seemed small suddenly involved serious money. In 1979, Porter Wagner filed a lawsuit against Dolly Parton, claiming she owed him millions of dollars connected to their past deals and the work they had done together. The lawsuit shocked people in Nashville. This was not a quiet disagreement behind closed doors. It was a public fight between two people who had once looked like family. For Dolly, it was one of the hardest moments of her career. She had never wanted the relationship to end that way, but now the man who helped make her famous was standing on the other side of a courtroom asking for part of what she had built. The case dragged on until they finally reached a settlement, but the damage was done. Even though they later made peace, the trust between them was never the same again. Dolly would always say she loved Porter for what he did for her, but she also learned a lesson she never forgot. From that point on, she wanted control over her music, her contracts, and her business. If she was going to succeed, it had to be on her terms. That experience changed the way she handled every deal that came after, and not long after the lawsuit, another moment would test that decision again. This time, the pressure would come from the biggest name in music, and the choice she made could have cost her one of the most famous songs she ever wrote. The legend who almost stole her song. The song, "I Will Always Love You," is still regarded as one of the most important songs of Dolly's career. After she released it, it climbed the charts quickly, and people in the music business began paying attention to it. Before long, word reached one of the biggest names in the world, Elvis Presley, and he wanted to record it. For any songwriter in the 1970s, that kind of moment felt almost unreal. Elvis was not just another singer. He was the biggest star in music, and having him record your song could change your life overnight. When Dolly first heard that he was interested, she could hardly believe it. She later said she was excited beyond words. The idea that the king himself wanted to sing something she had written felt like the highest compliment she could ever receive. At first, everything seemed like it was going to happen. Plans were being discussed, and Dolly was told that Elvis loved the song. For a young songwriter who had worked her whole life to be taken seriously, this looked like the moment where everything paid off. But in the music business, nothing is ever that simple, especially when Elvis Presley was involved. Before the recording could go forward, Dolly was asked to meet with the people who handled Elvis's business deal, and that's when the situation changed. Elvis did not make the decisions himself. Those decisions went through his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, a man known for being one of the toughest negotiators in the industry. Parker had a reputation for doing things his own way, and anyone who wanted to work with Elvis usually had to agree to his terms. During the meeting, Dolly was told there was one condition if Elvis was going to record the song. She would have to sign over half of the publishing rights. For someone outside the music business, that might not sound like a big deal, but for a songwriter, publishing is everything. It means the right to earn money every time the song is played, recorded, or used in a film. Giving up half of that meant giving away part of the future of the song. And the way the request was made it clear that this was not a suggestion, but a rule. The pressure was enormous. Almost nobody said no to Elvis Presley, especially not a young female artist who was still building her career. People around her understood what the opportunity meant. Some of them thought she should accept the deal without hesitation, but Dolly Parton saw something that others did not. She understood that the song was more than just a hit. It was part of the foundation she was trying to build. She had worked too hard to own her music, and she knew that once she signed those papers, she would never get that control back. The request felt wrong to her, even if it came from the biggest name in the business. She later said that making the decision was one of the hardest things she had ever done. She cried after the meeting because she knew what she was turning down. Saying no meant that Elvis would not record the song. It also meant risking her reputation with people who had the power to help or hurt her career. In an industry where relationships mattered, refusing a deal like that could follow you for years. But she still refused. The recording never happened, and the moment passed. For a long time, it looked like she might have made a mistake. However, what nobody knew at the time was that the decision she made that day would become one of the smartest moves of her life. Years later, the song found a second life when Whitney Houston recorded it for the movie The Bodyguard. The single became one of the biggest hits in music history. It sold millions of copies, played on radio stations all over the world, and turned into one of the most recognizable songs ever recorded. Because Dolly had kept the publishing rights, she earned money every time the song was used. That income helped her invest in new projects, expand her businesses, and grow the empire she had been building for years. If she had agreed to the deal in the 1970s, half of that money would have belonged to someone else. The choice she made when she was still young protected her future in a way she could not have fully understood at the time. But Elvis's camp was not the only place where tension started to grow. In the years that followed, another conflict would appear much closer to home, this time involving one of the most famous friendships in country music, and a partnership that almost fell apart behind the scenes. The tension with Linda Ronstadt. In the early 1970s, when the legendary Emmylou Harris and Linda Ronstadt first met, they began talking about music the way singers often do, and they asked each other who they liked the most. Without planning it, both of them said the same name at the same time, Dolly Parton. What made the moment even more surprising was that Dolly felt the same way about them. All three of them respected each other's voices, and from the beginning, they talked about one day recording together. They tried to make it happen in the mid-1970s, but the timing never worked. Each of them was busy with her own career, and they were signed to different record labels, which made every decision more complicated. A few songs from those early sessions ended up appearing on their solo albums over the years, but the full collaboration never came together, yet the icky never went away. They all believed that if they could ever get into the studio at the same time, the result would be something special. That chance finally came in the mid-1980s. By then, all three women were already stars, and the industry knew that putting them together could create something big. They recorded in studios in Los Angeles and Nashville, working whenever their schedules allowed. When the album Trio was released in 1987, it became one of the most successful country projects of the decade. The record reached #1 on the country chart, crossed over to the pop chart, and won a Grammy for Best Country Performance by a Duo or Group. It was even nominated for Album of the Year, competing with some of the biggest names in music at the time. The harmony between their voices sounded effortless, and fans immediately wanted more. Because the first album worked so well, the three singers started talking about doing another one. Years later, they finally recorded songs for what was supposed to be a follow-up. In 1994, they went into the studio again, this time in California, and laid down tracks for a second project that fans later came to know as Trio 2. But this time, the process did not feel the same. Scheduling problems kept getting in the way, and disagreements between record labels slowed everything down. Instead of moving forward, the album sat unfinished, while months turned into years. The delays started to frustrate Linda Ronstadt more than anyone else. She was ready to finish the project, but the sessions kept getting pushed back. Dolly's schedule was packed with other work, and every time they tried to lock in recording dates, something seemed to come up. Ronstadt later talked about how difficult it became to plan anything when one person was constantly juggling so many projects at the same time. According to her, there were moments when all the arrangements had already been made. The studio had been booked, and everyone else was ready to start, only to have the session canceled at the last minute. The situation became even more tense when the delays started costing money. Studio time was expensive, and every change meant losing thousands of dollars. Ronstadt said there were times when she and Emmylou Harris had already shown up to work, only to learn that the recording would not happen after all. After a while, the frustration turned into something more serious. She began to feel that the project might never be finished the way it was supposed to be. Eventually, the problem reached a point where Ronstadt made a decision that surprised a lot of people. Instead of waiting any longer, she took some of the songs they had recorded together and remixed them without Dolly's vocal. Those tracks were then released on her own solo album. For fans who had been waiting years to hear the three voices together again, it felt strange. The songs had been meant for a group project, but now one of the voices was missing. When Ronstadt spoke about the situation later, she did not hide her disappointment. She said the constant cancellations had made it very hard to keep the project together. In her view, the problem was not about talent or friendship. It was about reliability. She believed that when people agree to work together, they should be able to depend on each other, and she felt that the delays had gone too far. Even though she still spoke with respect about Dolly as a singer, she made it clear that the experience had been difficult. The situation showed Dolly that even when she worked with people she admired, business could still get complicated, and disagreements could still turn personal. And not long after the tension with Linda Ronstadt, another unexpected conflict would appear, this time involving a younger musician who publicly questioned her work. The Jeff Tweedy situation. In January 2024, Wilco frontman Jeff Tweedy appeared on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert while promoting a book he had written about songs that shaped his life. During the interview, the conversation turned to music he loved, but also to songs that never connected with him personally. Tweedy explained that in the book he wanted to be honest about the fact that even great songs are not for everyone, and he mentioned one title that immediately caught the audience's attention. The song he brought up was I Will Always Love You. The reaction in the studio was instant. The audience could be heard gasping, and Colbert quickly turned the moment into a joke, teasing him as if he had just insulted one of the most respected names in music. Tweedy immediately made it clear that he was not attacking Dolly Parton herself. He said he admired her and understood how important the song was. But then he added a comment that changed the tone of the conversation and ended up spreading across headlines the next day. He pointed out that Dolly had written both Jolene and I Will Always Love You on the same day, something fans often talk about as proof of how talented she is. Instead of praising the story, He joked that she could have stopped after writing Jolene. Once the clip from the interview started circulating online, headlines quickly focused on the idea that a well-known musician had criticized one of Dolly Parton's most beloved songs. Fans reacted the way fans usually do when someone speaks casually about a legend. Part of the reason the reaction was so strong was because Dolly rarely finds herself in situations like that. For decades, she had managed to stay liked by almost everyone, even when she disagreed with people privately. Dolly herself did not respond with anger. She almost never does. After all, the song being discussed had already proven its place in music history many times over, and she did not need to defend it. Still, the moment showed that even someone with her reputation is not completely protected from criticism. No matter how long she has been successful, there will always be someone willing to question a decision, a song, or a part of her career. And not long after that interview, another story from her past started getting attention again. This one went back years, to a time when a group of writers claimed one of her biggest hits sounded a little too familiar, and the argument that followed led to accusations she had never forgotten. The Goldbergs' shocking accusation. One of the biggest moments of Dolly Parton's career came with the film 9 to 5, where she starred alongside Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin. The movie became a hit, and the theme song she wrote for it turned into one of the most recognizable songs of her career. But just as the song was climbing the charts, another problem appeared that threatened to turn that success into a courtroom fight. In 1985, a husband and wife songwriting team filed a lawsuit against her, claiming that the song 9 to 5 had not been written by Dolly at all. According to them, the melody came from a song they had created years earlier called Money World. The couple said they had recorded their song and sent a tape to people connected to the movie long before Dolly wrote the theme. Because Jane Fonda had been involved in the film, they believed the tape had somehow reached the production and that Dolly had heard it before writing her own version. The claim quickly became serious. They were not asking for a small settlement. They were asking for $1 million, which at the time was a huge amount of money, especially for a case built on the idea that one of the biggest songs in the country had been copied. For Dolly, the accusation was more than a legal problem. She had built her entire career on the fact that she wrote her own song. Being called a thief in public, especially after everything she had done to protect her music, cut deeper than the lawsuit itself. The case went to court, and Dolly was called to testify in person. She did not try to hide from the situation or let lawyers handle everything alone. Instead, she took the stand and answered the questions directly. When the two songs were compared in court, she said she could not hear any real similarity between them. At one point, she even told the opposing attorney that the way he managed to make the songs sound alike surprised her, because to her ears, they were completely different. One of the most important moments in the case came when she explained exactly how the song had been written. She told the court that the idea for 9 to 5 came while she was on the set of the movie itself. The rhythm that made the song famous, the clicking sound that feels like a typewriter, did not come from another recording. She created it by tapping her long acrylic fingernails together, copying the sound of office workers hitting the keys on a machine. That detail became one of the strongest pieces of evidence in her favor, because it showed the song had a clear origin connected to the film and not to anything sent years earlier. The defense also brought in a music expert to analyze both songs note by note. After studying the melodies, the expert told the court that the two pieces did not share enough in common to prove copying. He explained that the few similarities that did exist were simple patterns that could be found in many songs and were not owned by any one writer. In other words, the melody was not unique enough to claim it had been stolen. Once that testimony was given, the case began to fall apart. Without proof that the songs were truly alike, the lawsuit could not hold together. The court ruled in Dolly's favor, and the claim was dismissed. Legally, she had won, but the experience left its mark. Being forced to defend her own work in front of a courtroom was something she never expected, especially after spending years fighting to keep control of her songs. The hit record stayed exactly where it was, and 9 to 5 went on to become one of the defining songs of her career. Still, moments like that reminded her how quickly success could turn into conflict, even when she had done everything right. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.